Hello, everyone. My name is Ahad Ahmed, and this is my presentation for EDF 3604 Social Foundations of Education at the University of Florida. I'll be analyzing three faith based schools in the United States through a social justice lens, focusing on inclusion and the experiences of minority students. In this project, I hope to explore how culture, power, privilege, these things shape student experiences in these three faith-based schools. One of the schools is Hera High School in Louisville, Kentucky. Another is Ilm Academy in Roswell, Georgia. And the third one is Al Furqan Academy in Lilburn, Georgia. So using course concepts like cultural capital, hidden curriculum, and social reproduction, I'm going to examine how these schools support or maybe even fall short in supporting minority students, particularly those who are not part of the social South Asian majority. So most of these schools, even though they're based in the United States, we'll look at the demographics later. But most of these schools have a South Asian majority. So when we say South Asia, what I mean by that is Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. So just so we're on the same page, this is a map of kind of the eastern United States, just so everyone knows where these schools are located. Ilm Academy is based in Roswell, Georgia. This is an affluent suburb of Atlanta. Families often work in STEM fields and have strong academic expectations. Al Furqan Academy, in contrast, is located in Gwinnett County, also a suburb of Atlanta, and serves a more underprivileged population, including recent immigrants and refugees. So these differences significantly impact school culture and student experience, as we'll see on later slides. So taking a deeper look at each school, we're going to talk about Hera High School first. Hera High School is located in Louisville, Kentucky. It's got about 400 students, and the student body is pretty diverse. We have about 40% South Asians, as I mentioned earlier, that South Asians make the majority of most of these schools. 20% Middle Eastern, 20% Malaysian, and 20% African American. The school serves working and middle class families in Jefferson County. Parents are often in healthcare, logistics, or they run some type of small businesses. What's really interesting is how they structure the curriculum. They separate secular academics and faith-based studies. So students might study math and science in the morning, but then transition to scripture education or Arabic language education in the afternoon. The school also has about 30 staff members, many of whom come from the same cultural background as the students. They've built a strong presence in the local community and even on social media, which helps with outreach and engagement. In terms of academics, they follow Kentucky's GPA system and use MAP testing to track progress. It's a They have a college prep environment, and we've seen that they track data regarding students that graduate, and they have found that students often go on to schools like the University of Louisville or um, the University of Kentucky. Now let's take a look at Ilm Academy, which was in Roswell, Georgia. It's a pretty affluent suburb just north of Atlanta. The school has about 350 students, and the demographics are diverse, though again, it's mostly South Asian. Around 40% are South Asian, 30% Middle Eastern, 20% African American, and 10% Central Asian. Most families here in this community are upper class and upper middle class. A lot of parents, they work in the IT department, healthcare, or business. And what we've seen is that they really prioritize education. What makes Ilm Academy a bit different is that it's a values-based school, but so it's a faith-based school, but it doesn't have a formal religious curriculum. So while faith-based values shape the environment, There aren't structured faith-based classes like at Hira. Academically, the school is very strong. They use the MAP growth assessments, which help track students' progress throughout the year. Back in 2012, they even ranked in the top 2% nationally on the Iowa test of basic skills, which is pretty impressive. The staff is mostly South Asian, Middle Eastern, and while the school does well academically, there's still room to grow in terms of cultural inclusion, especially when it comes to representation and leadership opportunities for minorities. The third and last school that we're going to look at is Al Furqan Academy. Al Furqan Academy is in Lilburn, Georgia. It's a smaller school, about 200 students, and it serves a really unique mix of communities. We have about half the student body being South Asian, 35% are Burmese, and 15% are African American. The school is in Gwinnett County, which is a diverse and has a large immigrant population. A lot of them families here, though, are low income and newly arrived refugees, and many parents work in service jobs, warehousing, and small retail. What stands out at Al Furqan is how strongly faith is is connected to everything. So faith-based teachings are integrated into core subjects. So instead of separating faith-based studies and academics, they try to blend the two together. However, because funding is tight, the school runs with a small team. We've got around 18 members in Al Furqan Academy, and many teachers are forced to wear multiple hats. So teaching isn't the only thing that they do there at Al Furqan. This makes things challenging, but it also means the administration and teachers work pretty closely together. And so, in our we've seen this interviews, we've seen this that it has a family type feeling. Standardized testing is a bit inconsistent here as well, um, and there's no data, and no data was made available to us regarding any type of standardized test or test results here. Here's a quick side-by-side look at all three schools. Harris High School has the largest student body at around 400, while Ilm Academy has about 350, and Al Furqan is a much smaller organization with just about 200 students. The staff size matches the scale at Hira. Hira has the biggest team, and on the other side of the spectrum, you have Al Furqan, which runs at a kind of leaner, uh, has a leaner team with about 18 staff members. In terms of diversity, Hira also shows the most. Their team includes South Asian, Middle Eastern, African American, and Malaysian educators. Ilm Academy and Al Furqan both have mostly homogenous staff, mostly South Asian, though Al Furqan does have a few Burmese staff members as well. When we look at how students of color, especially non-South Asian students, experience these schools, there are big differences. Hira seems to be most inclusive, both culturally and socially. Ilm Academy and Al Furqan tend to be more uh, segregated, or there seems to be a little bit of subtle exclusion, even though they do have diverse student bodies. So while all three schools serve Muslim students, their approach to inclusion and representation does vary. This is a continuation from the previous slide, uh, sh- highlighting and illustrating the, uh, the the size of the schools, the differences in the size of the schools. One of the main things that we wanted to look at in this project was the experience of minority students, non-South Asian students. How do they navigate cultural differences in these schools? So when we talk about inclusion, it's really important to look at this aspect. At Hira High School, students from different backgrounds generally, according to our interviews, generally feel welcome. One Malaysian student said they felt included in both classes and student leadership. That kind of environment shows that the school is intentional about inclusion. At Ilma Academy, things are a bit more complicated. While the student body is diverse, we do find that African American students that we interviewed mentioned feeling left out of extracurriculars and leadership roles. It was like the culture of the school doesn't really make so much space for them to express themselves. And lastly, at Al Furqan, some students described subtle social exclusion, nothing obvious, nothing glaring, but they did say that there was a feeling of invisibility, or they did feel left out during some events that center around South Asian traditions as opposed to being truly inclusive. So even though all three schools are part of the same faith community, not every student experiences them the same way. In the previous slide, we've talked about uh, inclusive practices and we've compared and contrasted a little bit, but just to kind of organize and summarize everything in one area, because we've talked about it in previous slides as well. I'm going to go ahead and summarize it here as well. So when we compare these three schools side by side, it's clear that they each have strengths, but also have some real challenges, especially centering around inclusion. Hira stands out the most for its multicultural respect and inclusion. Students from different backgrounds aren't just present, they're participating and they feel included. Ilm Academy has a very strong academic background and a diverse student body, but cultural inclusion doesn't always follow. Leadership and school culture are still mostly centered around one group, and that can make others feel a bit left out. And Al Furqan shows more of a socially homogenous environment where the majority group really sets the tone. Minority students there often have to adjust rather than feeling like the school is adjusting to meet them. And all of this really highlights the role of the hidden curriculum. The hidden curriculum, as our course described, is the unspoken lessons about who belongs, who leads, whose culture is seen as dominant or normal. And it reminds us that diversity alone isn't enough. Schools have to be intentional about inclusion and representation. To conclude this educational journey, my final remarks would be as follows. Looking at these schools through a social justice lens, it brought a lot of the course themes to life for me, like cultural capital and social reproduction, and especially the hidden curriculum. Even in schools that share the same faith identity, student experience can be totally different based on things like ethnicity, class, and cultural norms. And what stood out to me is that inclusion doesn't happen by default, it takes intentional effort. And so schools need to think beyond just academic success and ask, are all students truly being seen? Or do they feel that they are visible? Do they feel like they belong to that school, that community? This project reminded me that real equity in education is more about access. It's more than access. It's about who feels empowered, who's represented, and who's being heard. Uh, and that um, and that concludes my presentation. And I hope uh, everyone that watches this presentation uh, learns something, appreciates it, and can offer me constructive feedback as well. And I can't wait to learn from my classmates and their presentations as well.